This is the ERP Advisor. Today's episode, Legacy Software Review, Deltek, Epicor IFS.
Shawn Windle is one of our speakers for today. Shawn is the founder and managing principal of ERP Advisors Group based in Denver, Colorado. Shawn has over 20 years of experience in the enterprise software industry. Jim O'Donnell is our guest joining us today. Jim is a veteran technical writer and journalist who has written about enterprise applications since the 1990s. Since 2015, he has covered the world of enterprise computing, including ERP, CRM, EAM, Industry 4.0, and other technologies for TechTarget's Search SAP and Search ERP sites. Prior to joining TechTarget, he worked as a contract technical writer and has previously covered enterprise applications and technology for IDG and Penton Media publications. Jim lives and works out of his home just north of Boston. On today's call, he will discuss Deltek, Epicor, and IFS legacy applications, as well as provide our feedback from attending the Epicor Insights 2021 conference this week. Welcome, Shawn and Jim. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, happy to have you. Today, we're going to continue our series review of legacy software applications, focusing specifically on Deltek, Epicor, and IFS. Shawn and Jim, I know you both just attended the Epicor Insights conference this week, so I thought we might start by having you share your insights on Epicor and what you may have learned or found out about at the conference this week. Jim, I might throw it to you if you're ready to go.
Well, actually, I was just discussing with Shawn. I did not actually attend. I was briefed by Epicor previously, but Shawn attended. So maybe Shawn, you should kick it off, and I can throw in any comments after you've.
Good, my mistake. I apologize about that.
Oh, that's no problem.
No problem. Yeah, I think I know as we were kind of preparing, Jim, I'm like, well, did I got into some good sessions for sure, and I do think sort of my general feeling coming from there was sort of an influencers track that I was on, so got to meet with some executives, which was fantastic, and sort of hear what's happening, sort of at a kind of a high level, but then even got into some very detailed discussions with some great people, and then it was great to actually walk the floor and talk to some of the exhibitors to kind of hear what's going on, some of the implementation partner kind of people, some other software partners, and then a little bit with prospects, right? So my insights are probably pretty like in the trenches, right? That's what I think our whole model as an organization is. So as usual, I would say if we get something wrong, let us know. And I really, really, really mean that. I really mean that. Whether somebody hears this conference is on right now or in the future, if there's something that we say that's incorrect, please, 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 please let us know. We actually had one software vendor recently do that, and it was great. And it led to them actually being included in some deals that they wouldn't have been. So I'm going to put that kind of condition out there too. And then like Jim said, I'm excited to hear what he has to say. I'll share my thoughts, but he also had some very specific briefings too. So I think between us, we're going to have some good insights. That's sort of the bottom line.
Great.
Now, here's what I heard. I'm excited. I mean, Jim and I were just chatting through this, that I'm kind of an excited guy anyway, but for enterprise software, not for all things. Sometimes I'm very nervous and I feel like I'm going to throw up sometimes when I talk about enterprise software because it's so hard. But I think overall, I think the Epicor conference was really, really good. I think there was a lot of really good indicators. We talk about this a lot, that I look for indicators because it's really hard to know what's really going on. But if you can look at the things you can see and they point in a direction to certain things. So there were 4 things that I saw in Shawn, our digital marketing manager, and Ashley, who's our marketing analyst who just started with us recently. We were talking about this yesterday. Overall, I think as an organization, the organization of Epicor, right, is really healthy. Financially, we had a quick briefing from CFO. He's relatively new. It was a great year, lots of good free cash flow, which is super, super important to fund whatever kind of investments are going on. So I think that was a really good indicator. I do think the leadership team was pretty cool. Like very impressive people, have great background. They've been through many different organizations, technology companies, software companies, all that. And and I just, sometimes I got to rely more on my gut than something objective. But I think they're really committed. Like I think they're really committed to the existing customer base and then the new customers out there. So that really was cool for me to hear that, right? Because I hadn't always felt that way about Epicor, about the leadership. And I ended up working under one of, it was a lady who was a CEO at one point, and she was a board advisor at one of our clients. And I had a chance to talk to her about what had been happening at Epicor in sort of the 2010s. And she gave me a pretty good insight on that. So I really felt like this leadership team, though, was really, they're all in. I think I'm making Epicor go right. And frankly, they should be, because they got a hell of an opportunity. Like a really good opportunity as individuals and as a team to really high perform. They could really do very well personally and for the company and for the market. So that was great. Product wise, I saw a lot of good things. Again, Jim and I were just chatting about this, that, for Epicor is very focused on certain industries, and they know what they do well and they know what they don't do well. And they're making the investments in the areas that they do well. And that's important, right? Like even, I'm probably stealing a lot of Jim's thunder here, but if you think about a mid-sized manufacturing organization in North America, how inclined are they to move to the cloud? Well, there was COVID and we had to get people out of the office. Okay, now it's the real deal, right? And I think that's why Epicor had such a good year last year. But a lot of folks don't still want to move. And it's not like you have to. Like we're not big like cloud advocates. We will never be an advocate for a certain technology. But what we will advocate for is what's right for our clients. And it is the right thing to get out of your servers and are on premise, or dealing with like the hardware and the the infrastructure software that runs on the hardware, the app servers, the database server. Like those are problems we just shouldn't have anymore. It's like I have a salad in front of me that I didn't get to finish before our call, and I didn't have to grow the carrots, right? Somebody else grew the carrots, put them in the grocery store, and we got them, and now I get to cut up the carrots and make it, right? That's sort of that's a strange analogy to cloud, but it's kind of true that, a manufacturing company should focus on what they do best, and maintaining servers and all the stuff inside of it is not what they do best. So I think Epicor knows that, and they're making very specific investments to just infrastructure, the tools, the platforms, right? So that was great to see. And then the fourth thing is they are putting their money where their mouth is in terms of apps. Like, and I think, Jim, we even talked about this earlier I think it was last month, where we did a piece together. Really, you invited us, which we appreciate. That's why we wanted to invite you to one of our things. The KB Max acquisition, they have a lady that runs their acquisition group, and she was sort of throwing out a little bit of teasers for us. And that's exciting to me, because those are all the right indicators that you'd like to see for a software vendor, because, you could get into the whole private equity backed and private, and they're getting their recurring revenue. I mean, I talked to one of the senior executives about this, and I was like, it's a great short-term play, but long-term, what does this really look like for net new clients? Existing clients make sense, but net new clients. And he said, look, we're in. And I was like, I believe you. I just really believe that leadership team is there to do the right thing. And I think they have a great, very committed customer base on the manufacturing side, but especially distribution side, with the Profit 21 group. Like I got to go to a dinner and I sat next to a Profit 21 implementation partner. And he was just like he's paying his kids' colleges, probably. We didn't get to that level of conversation, but he's probably paid for his kids' colleges through his service and support to Profit 21. He was all in on that product, and a really good person wanting to do the right thing in sort of the Pittsburgh area. It's like, that's what I want to see. I want to see people that are all in. And I just saw that in all of those four areas, really, that Epicor is really focusing in the right areas. I think doing the right things. We need to execute for sure, right? We need to get clients on Kinetic. We need to see what kind of problems the first ones run into. I mean, and I know they're through certainly that first alpha beta testing and all that stuff, but I'm excited to see what comes, and have even sort of we haven't done a lot with Epicor over the years, and we will be doing more with them because we have to, because there's a great product there that I think could really benefit our clients. So that's my call. We could probably wrap it up, Jim, but I think you're going to have some.
No, that's really, you're not saying much that I haven't heard a lot to disagree with. I think their management structure is really good. I think their investment or their in their product has been very well done. As you said, they did a few years ago, they had this sort of disparate kind of set of products. They weren't really interrelated. They weren't really cloud ready, but they've invested a lot in making them sort of that classic sort of multi-tenant cloud product, which is really where I think you need to go for an ERP, especially for the companies that they're best suited for, those small to medium-sized manufacturers. They have to get to the cloud at some point. And you sort of mentioned the sort of like the COVID imperative. That's put that stamp right on that this is not sort of a theoretical thing anymore. This is something we really need to do. We need to have these advanced platforms. We need to have the flexibility of the cloud. We need to have the faster return on investment. All those things that are critical, or the benefits of multi-tenant SaaS, they have put that into what was formerly ERP 10 was their main ERP project. They kind of rebranded that as Epicor Kinetic, coming out of, and this is one of the sort of the better parts of it, but Kinetic was their redesigned UX, right? So they came and they redesigned it, I think last year or the year before, they redesigned the UX, made it much more mobile friendly, made it much more sort of consumer oriented. So you can have it on any device. If you're on the plant floor, you can have your phone with you and have the Kinetic UX. So I think they're making a good move to rebrand that, what people got to know of as their new UX, as their as the brand now of their ERP system. So I think they've done a really good job in that respect. And there's a couple other interesting features that they brought on in the last couple of years. One is their digital assistant. They call it EVA, Epicor Virtual Assistant, which kind of it's not a thing. They call it the Siri for ERP. That's not the thing that's probably going to sell your system. That's not a thing that people are really, not everyone's going to need or want something like that. But to have that as sort of a feature of your platform, I think is really it's showing a way to where this is going to go in the future, and it's adding functionality, which is really going to be good for some people to have that ability to interact with the system hands-free in a manufacturing environment. You can it takes a lot to kind of a lot of change management. It takes a lot to sort of move people to get in the mindset of, yes, we can sort of use a voice activated ERP system. But a lot of people coming into manufacturing now, they've had Siri in their house for 10 years almost, right? So they're used to it. So the whole change management piece of it is not as maybe a big deal as it was before. It's still really important, but the whole sort of world of how people are interacting with their UX, which was very, there's still a lot of green screen out there in manufacturing environments, right? So, but they do have to, I think a lot of companies are sort of, changing. And the other thing interesting newest sort of feature they brought on was this application studio. It's a low code. It was called, I think it's literally called Application Studio. And it's an environment where you can go in and you can customize your system much more easily. It's a low code, no code environment. As you know, Shawn, I'm sure you talk to customers. One of the major issues, especially with upgrading, is having all these customizations that once you implement your ERP, you have to go in, you have to customize it to take care of particular small changes or just things that you need that are specific to your industry. So having the ability through Epicor's Virtual Studio to make this an easier process, to make it faster, to make it sort of less costly, because customizations, for some of the more complex ERP systems like an SAP, I mean, SIs go in and they companies spend like millions of dollars customizing their system. So Epicor's got two advantages with their industry specificity. First of all, you're building a lot of that customization with the industry specificity. And I know we talked about some of the industries that they're good for, like metals and discrete manufacturing and process manufacturing, things like that. There are some really specific things that those businesses need. So if you have a more general sort of generic ERP, might be very powerful, but you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to customize that for your particular industry. So Epicor, they do have some of that already, but then there are specific things within those industries that your company might do a little bit differently than someone else. So you really need that ability to customize, and to have something like Virtual Studio, have it be low code, no code, and it's a good advantage for them, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think, Julia, I think we could both say that, like I rely a lot on like intuition and gut and all that stuff, just doing this for so long. And then what even if you can't communicate it. And I do just feel like we're in a really, I think that organization is a really good time for the reasons that Jim talked about, some of my observations too, which is exciting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, more options, it sort of kind of substantiates our existence. But it's true that not every app fits. The suite of apps isn't perfect for, every industry. So it's important that we have vendors out there that care, that are doing something about it. And I think we'd both say that's what we saw, which is great.
Right.
And I will also point out too, just one thing.
Yeah.
Epicor does say that they will support their on-premises customers for as long as they want. They say they're not going to, have anyone make a move before they're ready for it. So I take them at their word that they will. Maybe it'll come to a point where that won't be sort of economically feasible for them as a company, but I think they will. They're pretty intent on making sure that customers will have the sort of implementation that best suits them.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it sounds great that Epicor was able to have this conference and share that, all this good information and get people excited for what's to come and what they're able to offer. So that's a good thing. For sure.
It was great to see people, and I actually hugged some people. I haven't hugged people I didn't know that well in a long time. And I was like, I think it's okay. So that was good. It was good to see people and have them excited.
For sure. So Jim, you have a very rich history as an ERP journalist. From your experience, can you share how ERP software has evolved in the time you've been covering the industry? I know that's a big question to ask, right?
It is huge. I mean, I started back before the first company I worked for was called Lotus Development. I don't know if everyone remembers that, but they were sort of started in spreadsheets in the 80s, and in the 90s, they came out with this software called Lotus Notes, which was this before the internet, it was a way they called it groupware. So people could get together and share files and work on things collaboratively, which they couldn't at that time. Well, of course, the internet came along, changed all that. So that was the sort of the huge big bang. Was first of all was the internet, and then I think ERP really it was probably around 2000, maybe in conjunction with Y2K, I would assume in the late 90s, that companies wanted to consolidate all these hundreds or tens or maybe thousands of little applications that were all different things, put them on in sort of one ERP system, which was all integrated, so that kind of took over in the 2000s, and then since then it's really been the move to the cloud. And they have all these on-premises customers that were the generation that moved on to these monolithic sort of ERP systems that had all the functionality, the finance and the CRM and the all the different functionality in one system. But just lately, it's really been the move to the cloud, and I think that's where things are going. No matter whether it was public cloud or private cloud, the specific sort of nature of the cloud transformation has been evolving as well. But in general, I think, just to, put a 30-second, sort of put it in thimble form, there's been the concept of digital transformation, which sort of I've seen right from the start, right? I mean, in the beginning, digital transformation is a sort of amorphous term. It can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. But, I remember back in those early days, digital transformation was literally taking like traditional paper-based processes, whether they were sending out invoices or, even email was like, you used to send people physical notes, or in publishing, you would have like, cut and paste was a literal process. So, taking those processes and making them digital, right, was the first sort of digital transformations. But now it's become to mean something much more transformative, where companies can take those old business processes and not just make them digital, but really fundamentally change them so they can have different business models they can go for. If they they want to sell their products as a service, what they call servitization. They need to have the process, the applications and sort of the infrastructure in place that can support those kind of moves. And that's not going to happen with those old on-premises ERP systems. That's going to take the move to these new sort of modern advanced ERP systems, as we're seeing with Epicor and IFS and all the other vendors. One that we're not talking about them specifically now, but a company I cover a lot, SAP, has a term called the intelligent enterprise. And it's kind of, it's another sort of amorphous term, but it's really this concept of using data in ways that are advancing your business in ways that weren't possible before. I mean, I think that's the big changes I see.
Right. Well, to think of how far we've come, like how far can we continue to go, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yes. So, Shawn, I think we do a lot of talking about the different software applications, but I think it's important to maybe touch on the different implementation partners for these particular software applications. Can you share with us a little bit of what you are seeing from the different implementation partners for these specific applications we're talking about today?
Yeah. So we've talked about Epicor from a kind of an application perspective. And sort of, I'm trying to sort of tie together a couple things that came up at the conference too. I went out of my way to meet with a couple Epicor partners that we've worked with in the past at the sort of the exhibit hall, and just to kind of check in, see how things were. And good, really good, like really, really good for them. And I think this is sort of applicable to probably the IFS channel we're getting to know better, right? And then Deltek for sure, we've done a lot of work there. Jim can talk to more on the IFS product itself too. We'll get to that in a minute. But much like the transformation on the software, sort of in parallel, there's transformation with implementation partners. And it's sort of comes from a point of it's sort of hard to watch the software vendor get into a recurring revenue model and not want some of that recurring revenue yourself. And so we see a lot of implementation partners writing bolt-ons or very like, not just vertical, like industry specific, but maybe sub-vertical or very, niche sort of solutions for sort of very micro vertical focused. I'm thinking of one vendor that's written a solution for electronics recyclers. Like, is that a distributor? Is it a manufacturer? Like, what is that, right? But now, boom, they've written an app, and then they're able to sell that app to multiple kinds of organizations like that. So that's one big change for sure, I think, Juliet, is the implementation partners are looking for that value-added step and starting to build out really very sub-vertical, sort of micro-vertical, I should say, focused solutions, which is exciting. And actually, Epicor, the leadership team talked about that this week. And they need and want that from their partners. So that's a big one. I do think another one is consolidation. Oh my gosh. I mean, we could, look to SAP, like even we're in the middle of an SAP evaluation, and at least one of the partners changed ownership in the middle of the evaluation. So, we see that in the Microsoft channel and have for several years. The Dynamics 365 finance and operations people especially are just getting eaten up and gobbled by the next global group. And but I think in the sort of the Epicor space, I think there's probably, I remember there was a partner we used to do a lot of work with that, has sort of branched out into some other apps as well. And, when we go to a partner, like we were just doing a sponsorship call with a client last week, and we had the implementation partner and the software vendor sort of relationship execs we were talking to. And I said on the call with my client, I'm like, I like it when an implementation partner just does one app. You are all in. Again, you got to make it go right. And you know what? If you're not able to make it go right with that vendor, go to another vendor. Now, that being said, we do have some vendors that they support and work across multiple vendors, but I personally like that. And I think like in the Epicor channel, I think we're seeing more and more of that for sure. Now, Epicor has professional services too, and I think we got a little bit of clarity on sort of, does Epicor professional services do the implementations or partners? I think they're tending more towards the professional services over a certain revenue size. So that's fine, right? Because then the software house has the best people that know their app, supposedly. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. I won't drop any names, even though I want to, because of the frustration we've had with some of those professional services groups recently. Anyway, fast growing, sometimes the service is first thing to go out, so watch out for that. But that's some of the big changes I think that I'm seeing, and it really is interesting too. We're talking about 3 vendors today: Epicor, IFS, and Deltek. And Deltek, especially, just last week there was a major announcement that one of the partners that was our go-to partner for Deltek, they just got acquired by a partner that does multiple different types of apps, and they're really making more of an industry play. So that company called Action bought Central Consulting Group, and I was really surprised to see that. Like I haven't called or talked to anybody to find out what's going on, but I think Action is saying we want to dominate in architecture, engineering, construction, and we have multiple products to support that, including Deltek and the other products that they support, some cloud, some info products and things. So the implementation partners are evolving as much as the software vendors. That's the bottom line.
Well, they need to, right? In order to be able to help their clients, because what else would they be good for, right? So to speak, right? They need to know the latest and greatest to be able to help, right?
And differentiate. That's right. Bring more value. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So Jim, speaking to some of the existing customers running on Epicor and IFS, can you share some factors that they should consider if they're looking to upgrade?
I think, they probably have to figure out, they have to get their cloud strategy right. I mean, that's the sort of the first point. How are they going to go? Are they going to, go to a public cloud infrastructure? Are they going to have some private? They're going to have hybrid. I mean, I think that's the key point, because that's really going to, have the most effect on how you're going to run your applications afterwards, right? I think it's just having the right requirements for the system, because you really, you are going to invariably change your business process. That's the whole point of moving to these sort of more modern ERP systems, is you don't necessarily do things the way you did before. So, kind of going through and doing a very exhaustive, extensive sort of process, analysis of the way your processes are working now, and kind of mapping that to the way that they can work or they will work with the new system. I think that's critical. And and you have to take into account, things like change management and getting the executive buy-in to make sure that everyone's on board, because these are big changes across a lot of these companies, right? I mean, I think they really, you're going from a way that people have worked for 30 years, 20 years, sometimes maybe more, to a new way, and a new way of interacting with the system, and new things, new capabilities of the systems. So I think that having, taking into account things like change management and executive buy-in is really important.
Right, right. Shawn, can you continue on and share your insights about Deltek legacy software and existing customers, what they should consider?
Yeah, and it dovetails perfectly to what Jim said, where it comes back again to the cloud strategy that an organization wants to take, but it's also what are the problems that they're trying to solve, right? Like what are engineering firms, construction firms, architecture firms, and other professional services firms. We have a client that's a multinational services firm right now that's coming off of Deltek. And when I think about what sort of is driving them through that process, they had done a little bit of an analysis with Deltek professional services to say, okay, what would it cost to move to Vantage Point, which is the new sort of cloud-based solution there, browser-based kind of app, and it was pretty material. It was a major change because they had customized their existing Deltek Vision instance, and so there was a lot of work that was going to be required to get up to basically the next iteration of whatever software they were going to go to. And a lot of the firms on Deltek are going through a lot of changes. Their industry changes, a lot of consolidation. Our client happens to be sort of a private equity portfolio company that is a platform, meaning the PE is using this organization to go around the world. I mean, literally into islands I never even knew existed around Fiji, not Fiji, but islands around Fiji, for insurance adjusting of all things, and basically aggregating these organizations onto a new platform and standardizing business processes and digital transformation. Like, you could work your way into the phrase digital transformation, or you could say it up front, right? But that's what they're really looking for. And they need a cloud-based solution to do that with multinational currencies and translations and you can imagine. And so when they start to look at that level, they may have been a smaller firm in the past, now going to this whole new level. And so it was a question of can Deltek support us or not? And it could. The new version could, but there was so much changes that's why they brought us in to say, well, what else is there? You know, what else can we do in the market? So we've had some pretty big engineering firms come to us with that same situation where that they're told your product is sunsetting, that you're running, and meaning it's going to termination of support, like we've talked about all summer long, right?
That's right.
But again, Deltek's being responsible. Here's the migration path. Here's how we get there. But most clients, I think, are doing the upgrade, right? They don't even call us. They just do it because I think, to Jim's point, they don't want to go through the change. They've been doing business a certain way. Now we get onto a product that's more cloud-based. That's easy. Let's just do it, right? But those organizations that are changing are the ones that are like, oh, we're having some problems before. Now you're going to make us go through an upgrade. Well, I'm going to go look. So, you know, if I were an executive at Deltek, I would talk to every dissatisfied client, literally. I mean, but that's the kind of guy I am. And some of them aren't going to do it. They're not going to make the upgrade. They need to switch. Fine. But for those that are looking towards the cloud strategy, just like Jim said it perfectly, the technology sort of cloud strategy, the requirements, the change management, right? If those all are in alignment with that upgrade, then just do the upgrade, because it is easier to do the upgrade than to switch apps. I don't care what anybody says, it always is. And often we will recommend to our clients, just do the upgrade. Don't go through this wholesale change and risk all the factors that Jim said to basically get into an app that does what your old one did, but now you're in the cloud. Like, no, there's got to be some compelling reasons, which usually goes back to, well, we do that presentation, what to do when you're outgrowing your accounting software. And there's like 4 drivers, right? There's change in market, legacy technology that somebody built a bunch of custom stuff and they're going to win the lottery. Erica, who leads our sales, she told me this. She said she got a call from a client that literally had a legacy person who wrote a bunch of customizations and he died.
Oh.
And they're like, oh my God, we have no idea what to do. So I much prefer the lottery. If my wishes were true, there'd be a lot of winners of lotteries of legacy technology customization people. So let's make that clear. And then, you know, change in ownership. and then usually sort of geographic reach expands. Those are good reasons to look at doing additional apps. And we can give you much more details if you want to, just let us know. But bottom line is, Deltek is, I think, in an interesting position. I probably need to spend some more time, honestly, with their corporate to really see kind of what the message and what's really going on. But from the trenches level with clients, that's what I'm seeing, where either they're just doing the upgrade fine, but it appears to me that more customers are saying, I need to go look outside because I don't like that you're shutting me down. And different people, different like manufacturers versus engineers, as just the mentality, the way people think is a little bit different. I don't think engineers like to be told what to do sometimes. So that's the other part of it, is you have a whole customer base of AEC, architecture, engineering, construction people that are like, I want to just do things my way. You don't get to tell me what to do. So I think there's been a little bit of that backlash that they've received also. It's just tough customers with tough requirements. So anyway, that's sort of rambling on, but the bottom line is that, Deltek has a great customer base, and I think their go forward is just a little bit less clear to me, that the value proposition makes as much sense to upgrade than it does for, say an Epicor or an IFS.
Right.
Again, let me know if I missed something, please, listeners.
Jim, from your research and your writing, can you offer an outlook of where you feel these vendors are headed here in the near future?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of that, actually. I think that from the companies that I followed more closely, IFS and Epicor, I think they're in really good shape with their products. I think their customer bases are taken care of as far as supporting the existing base, and they're also being given the resources and the opportunity to upgrade and to make this digital transformation to their their latest cloud products. Some of the customers aren't ready for that yet, right? I mean, you have to acknowledge that, and so I think both companies are supporting that. But I think the investment. Let's say a little bit about IFS. IFS. They have a really good management structure too. I've talked several times with their CEO for the last couple of years, Darren Roos, who came from, most recently he was a high-level executive at SAP. And he's really sort of put forth a very ambitious sort of program and a way to consolidate IFS's products for, they were a little bit, they kind of parallel a little bit Epicor in the way that they had a bunch of acquired products, and they were sort of not really, didn't really work well together. They were sort of disparate, and they've unified those, written them entirely for the cloud. Their suite is called the IFS Cloud Suite, and it includes under a single unified platform their ERP functionality, CRM, enterprise asset management, and field service management, sort of all in one, as I said, under one unified platform. So it does make for a less complex environment to to administer, and you're also they have functionality that's really some companies can really if you're an asset management or you're an asset heavy company, you've got the EAM functionality in there, and if you do field service management is really kind of a growing need for a lot of companies. So IFS they've acquired a couple of companies in the last few years that are expanding their capabilities for field service management. So if you are a company that's important to you, that they're definitely you should be looking at IFS. Again, and sort of paralleling Epicor a little bit, they're very manufacturing oriented. They have industry specificity. I think they have 4 or 5 specific industries that they're going for, that their capabilities are sort of matched for, and they're also they're a little on the sort of, actually they're a little bit more, I think, geared for companies that are a little bit larger than Epicor's customer base overall. I don't know if Shawn, you'd agree with that, but I think they're going for more the mid-range to smaller end of the large enterprise manufacturing space, particularly. And I think they're also starting, their outlook is that I think that they're going to be looking at more of the larger enterprises. They're, I think they see themselves as competing more with the SAPs and Oracles and Infor, a little bit Infor, kind of on that level too. So I think that's where IFS is going. Epicor again too. I think that they've got a great product set, and I think that that their sort of method of kind of meeting their customers where they are is very helpful for their customer base.
Yes.
Yeah,
Shawn, do you have anything to share
I
and
do.
add?
Yeah, I think as we've sort of gotten to be reintroduced to IFS recently, there's a sales rep that's really taken some ownership to help us, which we really appreciate that a lot. It helps us immensely. I think to your point, Jim, you can't not look at that product for heavy asset field services, so utilities and sort of these other industries. That it's interesting because it's an alternative to SAP, right? And we do see SAP, I think, starting to get their S/4HANA cloud strategy more clear. We didn't even talk about that, Jim, in terms of today.
That's a subject for another day.
And we probably need to do that. I don't know. Did we didn't really do? We did an SAP call earlier. It was one of the first ones we did actually.
Yes.
But even since then, I think it's changed. We might have to do an update. Maybe we'll have you back for that one, Jim.
Yep.
It's great to get your feedback. But I'm really excited to see where IFS goes. I think they are targeting these specific industries. I think we have a client actually that we had talked to them about, which was interesting because they had rolled out Maximo for EAM, which is great IBM tool. It's like the top of the top. It's expensive. But their assets change out a lot. So our organization buys, their parent buys, and then they maintain with services these assets, and they're heavy assets, and then whoop, they get sold. So they wanted sort of Maximo to go with the holding companies. I think there's a value proposition for any of the IFS people that are listening that it makes sense from a cost perspective and to kind of spin out a separate instance in that because it is cloud software. It should work that way. So I think they're in a good position to sort of like, just like you said, Jim, they're not, they are going to go head to head with SAP in some deals, but I think there's a lot of companies that we're working with and organizations are saying, I want an alternative here for SAP. I'm not going to just go with it because it's the one in manufacturing that everybody goes. I need to find alternatives. I mean, we're working with a domestically US owned business by a Swiss parent that has other holdings throughout the world. And Swiss said SAP, and the guys here said no, right? So there you go. That's an interesting opportunity again to bring in an IFS. Whereas there may have been more of a mandate towards SAP in the past, there isn't that much now because there are more cloud options. And I think IFS is in a good position to be able to leverage that.
They are, yeah. And they have some interesting capabilities too that they've introduced. One, just in particular, is they have a real movement for sustainability and kind of offering functionality that can help companies meet. Increasingly you're going to have to meet, especially for manufacturers, mandates, requirements for carbon reduction. And so they have, capabilities for that they've introduced. And they're also, things like enabling models for the circular economy, where you can basically, you keep your manufacturing goods, you keep the parts or goods in the economy as long as possible. So there are all kinds of things that in your supply chain they have to, that brings into bear. You have to, just for a small example, you have to set up maybe a reverse supply chain. So once the products are out and they're coming back, and you're dealing with not recycling them per se, but you're putting them back into the products again. So those are the type of things that an IFS adding that capability to their to their software and their applications it's going to be really important for a lot of businesses going forward.
Right. Wow. Well, you both are such a wealth of knowledge. Thank you. Thank you for always sharing your experience and knowledge with us. I appreciate it. So
Thanks. It's been great. Really interesting conversation.
yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back, like Shawn said. We'll find another topic.
Yeah,
Sure.
great.
Yes.
Thanks, Shawn. Thanks, Juliet.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for today's call. Please let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help in any way we can. Email us, call us, whatever works best. We're happy to help. Our next call is scheduled for Thursday, August 19th. We will continue our legacy software series focusing on Infor. Please go to our website, erpadvisorsgroup.com, to register and for more details.
ERP Advisors Group is one of the country's top independent enterprise software consulting firms, advising mid to large-sized businesses on selecting and implementing business applications, including ERP, CRM, HCM, business intelligence, and other enterprise applications, which equate to millions of dollars in software deals each year across many industries. This has been the ERP Advisor.